Recording in progress. Debbie, it's fantastic to be having this conversation with you. Thank you very, very much. I know you are very much a brain specialist, Debbie. and through your site, The Best Brain Possible, you've been writing for a long time really interesting articles about sort of mood and brain change and laughter and joy and all these sorts of things. So it's great to be having this conversation with you, Debbie. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me, Joe. It's been a long time. We've communicated for years, and it's nice to finally meet you or meet you.
Well, I know. Yes. So cutting straight to it, Debbie. Okay. Question number one, you see, is what is joy to you? What does joy mean to you, Debbie?
Well, we kind of touch on this, but I think there's very distinctive differences between joy, happiness, and even like contentment. I mean, I think they're all distinct, different states. And I think joy is fleeting. And it's a momentary emotion that we can conjure up and intentionally create for ourselves. I shoot for contentment with little spots, bright spots of joy and happiness here and there.
Sounds great.
And I do think contentment and joy are intentional decisions. And by that, I don't mean you can just decide, I'm going to be happy or I'm going to experience joy and do it and kind of feel it. But it is kind of that simple. I mean, you decide, I'm going to live my life and do things throughout my day that encourage moments of joy or moments of happiness. And as we talked about, it might be just smiling to yourself or having an arsenal of funny videos to go watch, which I do. I have like a whole set that when I want to giggle, I can go watch those. Or for instance, yesterday, I work at a local university and I went on campus to feed the stray cats. I have a bunch of stray cats I feed. And I'm on vacation this week. So, but the cats can't go hungry. So I went to feed the cats. And while I was there, I saw this student with a beautiful 10-week-old puppy. And I was like, oh, can I pet your puppy? And I sat down on the grass and played with that puppy for like 5 minutes. And that made my whole day. But what I want to point out about that is, like you and I have talked about, you have to be aware.
Yes. And
in that moment, I was aware of the joy that I was feeling.
Very nice.
And my appreciation for the puppy. And Rick Hansen has written a lot of books, and he's kind of my spiritual guru because he blends the neuroscience with the spirituality.
Very nice.
And he calls it internalizing good. So when we do happen upon a moment of joy, like when I was with the puppy, we have to notice it.
Yes. Yes.
And we have to be in the moment.
Yes.
And be aware of it and internalize it and feel it and really dwell upon it. Think about this. We dwell upon bad things naturally. I mean, your brain is going to wall something that embarrassed you over and over and over, or bring up some painful experience from the past.
Yeah.
It automatically does that because your brain's number one priority is always your safety and your survival.
Yeah.
So it hangs on to the bad stuff and the painful stuff much more vigorously than anything neutral or happy. It
Yeah.
kind of just lets it slide. Rick Hansen says your brain is like Velcro for bad and Teflon for good. The good stuff just slides off. And that's why we have to make an intentional effort to notice it, recognize it, feel it, internalize it. So
very nice.
That to me is joy. Those moments of consciousness where you take in the good.
Yes. Fantastic. Fantastic. You've sort of, in everything you've said, you've slightly alluded to this, to the second question, which is how important is it to you? But how important is it to you, Debbie? How important are these moments to you?
Well, I would say that your mindset and your perception create your reality. And I used to torture myself with the pain of my past. I had a lot of horrible things happen in the past. And they were in the past, but my mind kept bringing them to the present every day.
Yeah.
And I created my reality with that pain and by bringing it to my present every day.
Yeah.
And torturing myself with it. And you actually change your brain doing that. You physically change your brain and your brain patterns. Your brain, what gets stronger is what you revisit frequently. Use it or lose it. And neurons that fire together wire together. So the more often you recall pain and unhappiness, or you think black and white catastrophizing and panic yourself and induce anxiety, the more that becomes the natural default for your brain. So I'd created that. So today I choose to create joy and happiness. Now, it doesn't mean the bad things don't exist. They do, most certainly. My life is far from rainbows and butterflies. And I certainly acknowledge the challenges and do what I need to address them. But I don't dwell on them and torture myself with them like you used to. I mean, it's a choice where you spend your mental real estate and your time and your energy. Like I said, you have to deal with the bad. You have to do what you need to deal with the challenges.
Yeah.
But you can choose to encourage and support yourself and others and the world. And I'm not saying we magically think the world into a better place, but I am saying you change your brain and you change your reality when you make the decision to focus your mind somewhere else.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Debbie, I knew this was going to be an interesting conversation.
Oh, good. You make me feel good.
And really, everything you've been saying, it's just, it's kind of sort of music, to my ears, and I know it'll be music to everybody else's ears as well. I love the way, for example, you highlight the importance of noticing and of paying attention. So you really had to notice, for example, the student with the puppy. And then you had, and then having noticed it, you then had to sort of take action. You had to then engage with, and so you had that, those minutes of joy and delight. But if you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't paid attention, if you hadn't actually sort of reached out and taken action, then that opportunity would have just have floated by.
And you know what that really is, Joe? It really is mindfulness. It's being aware of what's happening as it's happening, and not just outside of you, but inside of you.
Yes.
It's your environment and your emotional feelings, your physical feelings, your state.
Yes.
And there is some evidence that that is what changes our brain, is because we're redirecting the part of our brains that are active over and over again. Just like I said before, what you do repeatedly gets wired into your brain.
Yes.
So if you practice mindfulness enough, and I'm talking about mindfulness as a mental health tool, I'm not talking about some religious or spiritual experience, although it can be.
Yeah.
I'm talking about being aware and directing and guiding your mind instead of, I wasn't raised to be emotionally intelligent. I was raised, matter of fact, to be emotionally unhealthy, to overreact and dramatize and think negative and catastrophic thinking and anxiety provoking thinking. So that's what I did for the first half of my life.
Yeah.
And it was not fun, and it didn't benefit me. As you and your listeners may know, I tried it in my life.
Yeah.
And as you say in your book, it wasn't fun by any means.
No.
I gave myself a serious brain injury that took years to recover from. I also got my children taken away. They moved out of state with their dad.
Yeah.
So, things were really bad.
Yeah.
I thought they were bad before. They were not bad compared to what I encountered after I tried it in my life. But it was a blessing in disguise, because it, like you say, it forced me to make the changes I needed to make in my life.
Yeah.
And what I got to do the second time around in rehabilitating my brain is I got to choose healthy ways to wire it.
Fantastic.
Whereas the first time around, when we're all kids, we learn, our brains get wired from our environments, and primarily our caretakers. We learned how to emote, how to cope or not cope from them. But this time around, I got to read and choose intentionally how I was going to build my brain. And nobody has to have a brain injury to do that. You can decide to do that at any point. You just have to decide and make the effort.
Fantastic. This is absolutely fantastic. Because it's so good to hear from you, the way that the reminder that we can rewire our brains, and all we need to do is to be a bit careful about what we choose to put our focus on.
No, Joe, I don't mean to make it sound easy, because it's not.
Oh, no. Yes. Yeah. Please.
It is easier for children. Children's brains are like sponges. They're very neuroplastic because they are developing. Now, as adults, our brains are pretty much already wired, but they can change. It takes very concentrated effort. And what changes your brain is your attention. Your attention is like your steering wheel. But it also takes concentration and daily effort. It took me years. I have a blog on my website called The 10 Fundamentals of neuroplasticity and lots of other articles on how to neuroplastically change your brain.
Great.
And it does take effort. A lot of times we do it subconsciously. That's what addictions are. We don't even know we're doing it. What I'm talking about is doing it with intent to help yourself.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So with intention and effort and application and doing it for a sufficiently long period of time, we can, for example, train our brains to give us more joyful experiences, Debbie.
Exactly. My brain was wired from my childhood for the default to be depressive, negative thinking.
Yeah.
And I think having been wired that way for half my life, 40 some years, I don't think my initial instinct is ever going to change. I still have depressive thoughts. I still am anxious. But what you can change is that now I pause and I don't automatically believe what I think. And I don't automatically go there. I pause and I say, wait a minute, what do I want to think here? And what is going to help me? Right. And like I said, I still have anxious tendencies, but I feel the feeling and then I pause and calm myself down and choose my reaction rather than just instinctually respond. And we all can learn to do that.
Such a nice model, that. You feel the feeling, you're aware of it, but you pause and you calm yourself down before then taking action of some kind. So you aren't just swept along. It's one of these models. It's a fantastic model, of course, and it's incredibly simple. And like a lot of simple things, it's not easy to do.
I remember one of my most effective triggers, and it still triggers me, is my ex. I was married for 18 years, and he was a very controlling narcissist, which didn't help my mental health. I mean, I contributed too. We kind of fed each other's bad sides and fed off of each other. So, I mean, it was just a very unhealthy cycle on both of our parts. But he is very much a trigger for me. And it used to be when I would just see email from him in my inbox, I mean, my heart would pound, and it was all I could do at first, not to respond emotionally right away. But I started forcing myself to not, okay, you're not even gonna, I could compose a response, but okay, you're not even gonna send any response to the next day. And with time, the next day, maybe I didn't need to respond so strongly. And eventually it got to where I didn't feel the overwhelming urgency. I still felt the initial but I didn't feel the overwhelming urge to act. And I can say, I mean, I basically, that kind of action bleeds over into everything after a while. And I don't find that I have to react to a lot of situations where I would have before. And that is what made my life such a mess. And like, isn't that the ultimate overreaction, trying to end your life?
Yeah.
But in a way, it gives you control over your life, because if you're just reacting randomly to everybody and everything else, you're not in control.
No.
But this way, I'm in control of my life, and I decide where I put my energy, where I put my effort, and where I put my response.
Yes.
And some things don't even deserve a response.
Yes, yes. But you also said one incredibly interesting comment, which was by being given the opportunity to really figure out how best to respond to that major trigger. You mentioned that it then that approach bleeds over into other areas of life. So by focusing on the main trigger, when we actually really come to terms with how best to manage that, the benefits spread out into a ripple out even into the rest of our
The
life.
more you do it, the more your brain becomes calmer. You learn to calm your amygdala, which is the fear reactive center of the brain. And you put your frontal lobe, which is our humanness, our intelligence, our impulse control, in charge. And like I said before, the neurons that fire together wire together.
Yeah.
So the more you just let your amygdala react and act on that, it's going to get stronger.
Yeah.
And the impulse is hard to resist.
Yeah.
And the more you put your frontal lobe in charge, the more strength it's going to have over your limbic system and your amygdala.
Can I ask a follow-on question to this, Debbie?
Sure.
So, do you reckon we can train our frontal lobe to be more joyful, to experience more? There we go. There we go. There we go.
I definitely do. And again, that's mindfulness. And like I was saying before, it's choosing to look for the good and choosing to savor the moments of happiness and joy, like the puppy, or like my hydrangeas out front are blooming. And oh my gosh, they are gorgeous. And I mean, just taking a moment every day to go out there and appreciate how pretty they are and how wonderful nature is. And I hate to sound, I don't know, like some cheesy postcard, and I'm not promoting positive thinking. Please don't misunderstand that, because I believe positive thinking is unhealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be to a certain extent. If you ignore, I mean, in a way, it's kind of deluding yourself.
Yeah.
And it's wishful make-believe.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is go actually find good.
Yeah.
And take it in
Yes.
and savor it and
Yes.
be mindful in that moment.
Yes.
Be mindful of what you're feeling and amplify that feeling and those happy neurochemicals.
Fantastic, fantastic. So again, you're kind of what you. But I'll open the sort of the next page for you, because it's the final sort of question, really. You've actually answered it in so many different ways already, but I'll actually ask you the question. What would be your top joy tip, Debbie, or tips?
Well, for me, one of my top joys that always keeps me happy every day is my pets. I've got 5 cats. And I mean, stroking an animal helps your brain release dopamine, oxytocin. I live by myself. So it's kind of essential that I get that interaction. But I mean, just them, I don't know, sleeping with me, cuddling with me in the bed, or sitting on my lap when I'm at the computer. That to me is a never-ending source of joy. But I also do things like make sure you get adequate sunshine. Sunshine is essential to your circadian rhythms, a lot of your neurotransmitters. I love just sitting in the sun.
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of exercise.
Yeah.
I exercise about every day. And it has, I'm not going to say nothing to do, because it does have something to do with the weight and the way I look. But it has more to do with the way I feel.
Yes.
I can be mad, I could be anxious, I could be lacking energy, and I'll exercise, and 5 minutes into it, I feel stronger, I feel better, I feel more energetic.
Fantastic.
And a lot of times I'll just turn on some music and dance, and I have little weights, and I'll hold weights and do curls and lifts and stuff while I dance. And I've also gotten kind of obsessive about tracking my steps, so that gets in a lot of steps.
Yeah.
But I'm a yoga-holic. That's why I was asking you so many questions about laughter yoga, because
Yep.
I'm really intrigued.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like so much fun.
Yes.
But I do what's called hot yoga.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yep.
Which is yoga in 100 degrees.
Yes.
And around 40% humidity. And I love it.
Yeah.
And since COVID, my studio that I went to, I used to own it, has closed. And I only get to do it about 2 times a week. But yoga itself, as you know, releases neurochemicals.
Yeah.
It has all kinds of mental health benefits and physical benefits.
Yeah.
So I think finding joy and happiness is in your lifestyle habits.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you choose to live a mentally healthy lifestyle. After I tried to end my life, that's one part of rebuilding my life, my health, and my brain. That was an important part, is building a mentally healthy lifestyle.
Fantastic.
And I don't look at these things as chores or must-dos, but they bring me happiness.
Or even joy, Debbie. Even joy, perhaps.
Right.
Okay. Probably the simplest laughter yoga tip that I like to teach is just smile more. Just remember to smile. Whatever we're doing, wherever we are, as much as possible, just smile. And it can just be the relaxation of the face. And you can become one of these incredibly rare phenomena, because I really make a point of noticing the facial expressions of all the runners and joggers that I see. You can become one of these incredibly rare ones who actually seem to just smile and be enjoying it at the same time. Anyway, Debbie,
I'm not a runner. I used to be, a tore a meniscus, so I'll stick to yoga and other stuff.
Well, Debbie, thank you very, very much. This conversation has been absolutely wonderful and fantastic, and thank you so much for taking the time for us to have this conversation. I've
enjoyed it too, Joe. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Wonderful, Debbie. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.